I feel like I read a book, that featured somebody turning invisible because of radiation of some kind.
That sounds like a 1960s comic book.
Could have been. I don't think I read any 1960s comic books, but
Isn't that one of the Fantastic Four?
I think she could control it.
Okay. She's not permanently invisible.
Nah,
okay.
just by choice.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think
some choose invisibility. Some have invisibility thrust upon them.
Yes, with oh no, the quote doesn't really. I was gonna say like with great power comes great invisibility. That doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really make sense.
Well, it only makes sense with certain very specific powers, namely invisibility and nothing else.
Yeah, well,
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
What'd you think of the arc?
I liked it.
I like it too. There are parts of it that I don't like that much, but there are also parts of it that I like a lot. So,
Yeah, funny how that is.
Yeah. Isn't it just?
It is just. I think it was an interesting story, and I mean it felt very much like a First Doctor story, and I mean it kind of helps that the First Doctor was in it.
Yeah. That's one of the key things that makes it feel that way.
But it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Aztecs, kind of in the sense that like they land, they're immediately captured, then they got to try and explain themselves to these people who are holding them captive. And I mean, the Aztecs was very different when you got down to other things, but it was I don't know. It reminded me of that, and there's something I kind of like about the idea that the Doctor and his companions aren't always in control. That sometimes they're viewed as hostile, and they're kind of put under lock and key. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a thing in the '60s, especially with William Hartnell, that the Doctor has no idea where he's going to turn up.
Right.
So in a story like this, they have to get out of the TARDIS and kind of walk around and try to figure out where they are.
Right.
So the people they meet will always kind of have them at a disadvantage, where they don't always have the ability to just kind of bluster in and and claim to know what's up, when they just have absolutely no idea what's up, and they're just kind of very confused for most of the first episode of the story, and then again in the third episode of the story.
Yeah. That was another cool thing about that I liked about this story, is that it sort of, it looked like everything was wrapping up around episode 2, and then it did wrap up at the end of episode 2, and I was waiting for there to be some sort of problem, and then the TARDIS just dematerializes, and then of course it then rematerializes, and things are different. And I liked that. I thought that was kind of a cool concept, that they would come back to a place where they thought they'd fixed everything, and then realized something else had gone terribly wrong.
One thing that's kind of interesting is if you put yourself in the context of watching it back in the day, there was no concept of a 4-part story called The Ark going into it, because each episode has its own title.
Right. And
you didn't know in advance, how long a story was going to be. So you might well go into the second episode, and it wraps up at the end, and you think, oh, so that was kind of a short one. Wonder where they're going to land now.
Yeah.
And it was fairly normal in the 1960s for the end of one story to like the cliffhanger leading into the next adventure. So they'd get out of the TARDIS and be like, well, where are they? And, oh, they're back. It could very well have been kind of a mind-blowing thing. Like, whoa!
So wait.
It was a real format-breaking thing.
Yeah, well, and it certainly seems that way. How do we know these aren't two separate stories then?
Well, I mean, that's kind of a semantic thing, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
But from a production perspective, I mean, you can look at it from that perspective and be like, all right, well, it was commissioned as a 4-part serial. You got the same writing credits. You got the same director. It was like all the sets and stuff were the same. So it was produced from a production standpoint. It was produced as a 4-part serial.
I see. Okay. Well, that blows holes in my newly invented theory that this is actually 2 stories. Yeah. Well, and it seems like there are sort of cases where this has sort of happened after, like there have been later episodes that have done this kind of similar thing. Not I don't think quite in the same way. But I mean, actually, all I can think of right now is like Planet of the Ood, where the Doctor's like, well, I tried to save them before and I couldn't, and I want to help them now, which isn't really the same thing. But
and the Ood are actually kind of similar to the Monoids in a lot of ways.
That's true. Yeah, they're servants. They got weird speech thingies.
Yep.
I don't know if there's any other similarities, but
No. They're a servant race that sort of rises up, but it's kind of under different circumstances.
Yeah.
But yeah, another good example of that might be the Long Game and then Bad Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Which obviously it's not one right after the other, but they just kind of end up in the same place years later and find out that, the events they were involved with in the prior episode ended up sort of being part of a chain of events that caused problems down the line.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, that's actually a pretty good example. I don't know. I like that kind of idea where the Doctor is forced to think about whether or not he actually, helped these people or whatever. I don't know. I just think that's kind of cool. I mean, I was personally surprised that this was happening in an episode from the 60s, because I wouldn't have thought that they would have done something like this. And I don't know. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty cool aspect of this story.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the Monoids as villains?
Well, I mean, they were... I don't know what to think of the Monoids, actually.
They're not smart.
No.
They like to explain the plot out loud. And there's this one scene early in episode 3 when you first sort of get introduced to the talking Monoids. Now that they know how to talk, they have conversations that are kind of weird, like one of them will be sort of like explaining the entire evil plan as though it's never been discussed before. They'd be like, the humans are servant race now because they treated us like slaves, and then one of the other Monoids will say, that's true.
Well, to be fair, though, it could very well be just that they haven't quite figured out all the intricacies of speech yet.
Yeah, they might just be like really awkward conversationalists.
Right.
Tell me again about the plan to destroy all of the humans. And there are humans around who can hear them while they're saying that.
Right. Yeah, it could very well be that. I'm assuming that they had some kind of communication with each other, prior to. Oh well, they did. They had like the sort of hand signal things, prior to the introduction of their little speech devices. And it could very well be that these hand signal things were just very expository, and we just didn't notice because we obviously don't know what those hand signals meant. It could be that they just have this big tradition of this cultural tradition of explaining absolutely everything every single time that it has to come up in conversation.
That's true. Although, that actually might be like a cross-cultural thing, because there's also the part early in episodes 1 and 2 when the old leader guy's daughter is like, that's what he'd want us to do. He'd want us to defend them and seek justice. And then even though he's writhing in pain, and he just yells out, "That's true."
Yeah, it's true. I forgot about that. I forgot that that happened. Yeah, it could be that these people on this arc are just really into the truth, And they just really ingrained that into everybody, that just, you always seek out and identify verbally what the truth is.
Mm-hmm. Even if everyone already gets it.
Right.
Always just point out things that are true. That's true.
Right. It's like at the end of a prayer when you say amen.
Yeah.
It's like that,
Might well be just like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exactly like that. I think that is their amen. Is just that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's got to be it.
I actually kind of like the eyeballs in the mouth.
Yeah, that was kind of a clever little costume idea.
Yeah, I think it's the only part of the costume idea that's clever.
You mean you don't like the bowl haircut?
I don't like the Beatles wigs or the scuba flippers on their feet. Or those, I'm not too crazy about those. I do like that they all seem to have different hair colors.
Oh yeah.
They're not all the same, so that's kind of it gives them a little bit of variety. I don't know that I like the baggy costumes though.
Yeah.
But the eyeball thing actually is pretty neat.
Yeah. I have to say that's clever.
I don't know how they move. Do they move it with a tongue? Is that what they're doing?
That's what I kind of figured. But I mean, I imagine that would get really kind of uncomfortable.
I bet.
But then also, how do you I guess I'm assuming that the dialogue was just dubbed over. There's no conceivable way they could speak at the same time.
Yeah, it's got to be either dubbed over or there's a different actor off screen.
Oh yeah,
reading it into the scene.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't know.
But yeah, no, that was a cool thing. I mean, yeah, the rest of the costume could use a little bit. Yeah, it almost seems like they had this one really great idea, oh yeah, we'll put eyeballs in mouths, and then they kind of just dropped it. They didn't really follow through on what the rest of the costume should look like. And it was just after they had that one brilliant idea, they all pat each other on the back and didn't really think much about what the rest of the costume should look like. But yeah, I don't know. It was a cool idea.
Yeah, and another thing about the monoids that I really like is that one monoid who goes when they're in their refusion's house, which is very nice. He just his attempt to contact the refusion is just to pick something up and throw it, he'll throw a vase of flowers on the ground, and I just find that really, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's like he's being destructive, but in this really childish kind of way. Like my 4-year-old cousin.
Yeah, well, once again, along with speech, negotiation tactics are kind of a new thing for them because they've never had to negotiate anything before or, call attention to people. Yeah, I would say they are kind of childish and dumb. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how they ended up turning the tables and subjugating the humans.
I guess a very crafty use of spaces in the ship through the ingenious devising of a security kitchen. The notion that the kitchen is the prison. There's no need to have a prison and a kitchen. It's take the prisoners to the security kitchen, which is one of the most legendary aspects of this episode that's kind of discussed in fandom, the notion of a security kitchen.
Well, yeah, I mean, how would you not discuss that? I think, yeah, well, you know what it might have been is that, they turned this kitchen secretly into a security kitchen, and then it was like a Venus flytrap. People thought they were just going into the kitchen to make a midnight snack or whatever, and then they actually realized they couldn't get back out, and they were stuck in the kitchen and forced into servitude. Forced into
making chicken wings by dropping a pill into a bowl of water.
Exactly. I think that's got to be it.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, how about that future where you can just drop pills into bowls?
Mm-hmm.
That actually doesn't work or anything, from a matter standpoint. But whatever.
Probably not. I mean, I don't see how it could.
Yeah, although they do seem to also have this sort of shrinking technology that they can store 1 million people in a shelf or whatever.
And now that doesn't make very much sense that they use that to punish criminals either.
Right, they're not into the rehabilitation kind of view of prisons.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I feel like that's too much, that's too kind.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to put you in stasis and then instead of living out your life on this cramped spaceship, you get to live on the planet when we get there.
Well, right. It seems kind of like, the sentiment expressed by bumper stickers: kill them all, let God sort them out. It's kind of like that. Like, shrink them all, let the planet sort them out. It's kind of just deferring the problem, really.
I guess.
I mean, I would say that it does. It seems irresponsible to just don't, like, I mean, and especially because these people in stasis, they have no idea that they're about to get like a bunch of convicts when they wake up. I mean, like, there are going to be a ton of convicts among them, and they're not even going to know. I mean,
well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, if I were on the Ark, I'd probably just commit a crime so that I could just, like, live on the planet when we get to the planet and not have to, like, perish on a 700-year journey.
Right? Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a pretty sweet deal. Unless, like, when you are unshrunk, you have like a scarlet letter or something.
Oh, that could be.
That you gotta wear. That would be embarrassing, and maybe that would be why. But I mean, like, okay, so if you committed a crime, though, you'd go into stasis. You wouldn't see any of your friends ever again. That wouldn't be cool.
Unless all of your friends also committed crimes.
Right. You all just got together and you robbed, like,
the security kitchen,
the bank. Right, exactly. Yeah, so, yeah, I guess so. I guess that's how you do it. You get all your friends and immediate family, or at least the family that you want to take with you, to commit the crime with you, and then you all get put into stasis together. Yeah, that, yeah, I think that kind of is a little bit unfair.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be that they just figured that they did not have the means to properly sentence people, maybe, or something. I don't know. You know what? No, that doesn't even make sense. I don't know. So I'd never seen Steven before, I don't think.
If my knowledge of what you've seen is true, then you probably haven't.
But yeah, he seemed. I mean, maybe this is just my imagination. Maybe it's just I haven't seen the First Doctor era in a while, but he kind of seemed a lot like Ian.
I think he sort of was brought on board to fill that kind of role.
Okay.
Where the Doctor is this frail old guy, and and Ian was the sort of manly science teacher.
Right.
But in this case, it's Steven who is not a science teacher. He's he's from the future, actually.
Oh, is he?
Not necessarily relative to this story, but he's not from present day Earth. He's a space traveler from centuries in our future.
Ah.
And he's also kind of macho and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so he he's designed to fill a role, basically, the same role that Ian fills, but I think he fills it well.
Yeah, no, he seemed fine. I couldn't really pick up on, like, I don't know, he kind of seemed to do the things that I would have expected Ian to do, so I don't really know if at any point I witnessed him do anything out of that sort of mold. I mean, he seemed alright. Seemed alright to me. Dodo didn't seem terrible. She seemed kind of dumb.
I do not like Dodo.
I know.
Lewis.
I know.
I don't like Dodo at all.
I know you don't like Dodo at all. I will say I was a little confused by her apparel and her rationale for the apparel.
Yes. Very strange clothing. Very strange manner of speaking, where she's supposed to have an accent.
Oh, is she? I couldn't figure out what she was doing.
Well, I don't think she could, but I guess she was going to speak with some kind of accent. I think there was a dispute as to whether it was supposed to be a Liverpool accent versus a Cockney accent. But eventually the BBC decided that, it's not proper to have a main character on a BBC show speak in anything other than the King's English, received pronunciation, BBC English. So they put a stop to that and made sure that Dodo spoke in received pronunciation, just proper BBC English. But she kind of lapses back and forth into a couple different things over the course of her time on the show. and never seems to work out what it is she's trying to do. And then in 4 or 5 months, she's gone, and Polly and Ben join, and then Ben speaks in like a thick Cockney accent, and everyone's fine with it. So yeah.
So it was really just a problem with Dodo. I think that's the bottom line is, you know, they were trying to like make it out to be like a thing like, oh no, we need her to speak normal English, but no, it actually was just Dodo.
Yeah,
they're just
pretty much.
Yeah, they're just finding an excuse to, you know, I don't know, bully her off the show or something. I don't know.
Maybe. And the doctor keeps objecting to her the way she's speaking. And it's not entirely clear to me what he's meant to be objecting to. Maybe it's just the fact that her voice is really annoying, which I think it is.
Well, you know, there you go.
Like, I think he doesn't like her use of the colloquialism "okay."
Right.
At one point.
Yeah. I think he was saying something like, you know, at some point when we're all out of here, I got to learn how to. I got to teach you how to speak properly. So yeah. I think I guess he doesn't like that.
I wonder what he'd think about Matt Smith.
or just the introduction of terms like wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yes. I don't think he would like Stephen Moffat very much.
Yeah, probably not.
But yeah, she's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Her outfit doesn't make sense at the beginning of the story, and then the outfit she picks at the end of the story is, I mean, sure, why not? Her voice is annoying. She it's. I just think there's pretty much nothing to like about Dodo, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, she's... Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I mean, she's not really... I mean, she's important to this story in that she's the cause of all the problems. She doesn't really, like, do anything super awesome at any point. I don't know. Yeah, she kind of just seems sort of annoying and just not all that interesting. I don't know. Also, she just seems to have this really short attention span.
That's probably true as well.
I don't know. Like, just at the beginning of the episode, when she's like identifying all the different animals she sees, and I don't know, she thinks they're at a zoo, which I mean they kind of are.
I actually I like that scene because there's an elephant, and because you think at first that it's stock footage of an elephant. And then they just kind of walk up to it, and you're like, oh, it's an elephant. It's right there.
Right. Yeah, I think you mentioned that before. I don't remember when you mentioned that, but I think you have mentioned that in the past, that there was... That in this episode, they had an actual elephant. Which is, you know, is definitely surprising. Because, you know, the way that scene is shot, it does very much look like it's stock footage. Because it's done in the way that stock footage is typically done, where, you know, the camera... angle changes from looking at the cast to looking at the elephant, and so you think that those are two shots they just combined, but then they merge into one.
It's probably deliberately set up to fool you into thinking, oh, we couldn't get an elephant. Oh wait, we
could. That'll teach the audience for doubting the BBC. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so this whole serial was really just designed to thwart audience expectations.
Yeah, it really kind of was, and I think it succeeds at that.
Yeah.
Like, another thing that you don't expect is to see golf carts on a spaceship.
That's true. That's the last thing I expected to see on a spaceship, and that's knowing that there can be dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Yeah, even knowing dinosaurs. You didn't know golf carts.
Yeah. I actually like at the end of the second episode when the TARDIS is dematerializing. There's that monoid on the on the golf cart, and it just sort of slowly backs out of the shot as the TARDIS is dematerializing, and it's just like it just holds on this one shot of the golf cart just like backing out of frame. And I don't know, that I just feel like that shot went on for way too long, but it went on just long enough to be hilarious. I don't know what it was. I just thought it was just the funniest thing that it's just like the TARDIS dematerializes, and then just this golf cart just slowly backs away. I don't know. It just, something about that just tickled me. you do need like some kind of all-purpose vehicle when you're on your sort of jungle spaceship, though. I mean, that's just given.
Yeah, if you're on a ship that big, it does make sense that you'd have transport to get around within the ship.
Yeah. And why not little golf carts?
Have we mentioned before? When we talked about the war machines, did we talk about? Did I mention Jackie Lane's apparent desire not to be associated with Doctor Who? That's the actress who plays Dodo, by the way. Jackie Lane plays Dodo. Has no desire to be associated with Doctor Who, apparently.
I don't know if you specifically mentioned that. I do remember talking about how she goes on to get an STD.
Not Jackie Lane.
No, not the. Sorry, no. Dodo goes on to get an STD.
I don't know actually about Jackie Lane. I wouldn't want to say.
No, we don't want to speculate on that.
In the novels, she dies of syphilis.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
And she doesn't actually, but come on, she does.
Yeah, just connect the dotted line connect the dots. So she doesn't want to be associated with Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think she's the only living star of Doctor Who hasn't been in a Big Finish production. I don't think she's ever done a DVD commentary. She might do conventions. I don't know whether she does conventions. She also she retired from acting and became an agent, and she represented several people who were in Doctor Who, like Tom Baker.
Oh, really?
And Nicholas Courtney, who plays the Brigadier, and Janet Fielding, who plays Tegan. So I guess she just couldn't get away from it. I wonder if she advised them not to take the job.
Listen, I've been in that racket. You don't want any of this. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's really peculiar. I mean, like, I don't know. It's I think just now I was about like a half second away from comparing her to Alec Guinness, but I really just don't want to do that.
Please don't. So. Well, maybe she feels the same way I do about Dodo. Maybe that's it.
That could be. And I mean, I know that if I played Dodo, I wouldn't want to be associated with that. The bottom line is, who could really blame her?
I don't know.
Me neither. Well, but the thing is, though, if she decided to do a Big Finish, they could do something that would redeem the character.
Yeah, Big Finish kind of does that from time to time. A lot of people don't like Mel, except for her Big Finish appearances. A lot of people don't like the Sixth Doctor that much, except for his Big Finish appearances. And Adric is coming soon to Big Finish. We'll see how that turns out. But yeah, Big Finish could very well do the story that not only a good Dodo story, but a good Dodo story that like explains why all the other ones are so bad. Like a retcon saying that like, oh, she's very, very ill because of her syphilis, and it causes her to be very, I don't know, very awful. That's what syphilis does, right? It makes you awful.
I think so.
I don't mean to offend any of our listeners who may have syphilis.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't actually make you awful. I would say that there's definitely a story out there that could completely fix Dodo. If only she would let them do it. How much Dodo have we not yet watched? How many more times are we going to have to talk about Dodo?
Let me look into that.
Because I feel like we need to know this.
Dodo comes in at the end of the massacre.
Okay.
So then she's in the Ark, which we've already done. The Celestial Toymaker, which is the story that follows this that we haven't talked about.
Right. That's the missing one.
That's
right? The missing
episodes.
The missing racist one.
Yes. It's episodes 1 to 3 are missing, and then episode 4 exists.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the Gunfighters, which is another Dodo story. A lot of people do not like the Gunfighters. I like the Gunfighters.
Don't they sing in that one?
Oh, yes.
I can understand why people would not like that.
But I do. And then there's the Savages. And then there's the War Machines, which we've already seen.
Okay, so yeah, she didn't have much of a run at all.
No, they figured out that something wasn't quite right there, and they saw to it.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, so there are 3 stories in which she stars that we haven't yet gotten to, and then there's the Massacre, in which she only comes in at the very ending, and I'm sure we'll have to discuss that as well. But so 4 more Dodo discussions coming soon to the Cloister Room. Stay tuned.
Yeah, can't wait. So yeah, we're going to be talking about. We will have to talk more about Dodo. We're going to have to talk more about early Seventh Doctor. Yeah, so this will be...
Well, the early Seventh Doctor story that we talked about was Time in the Rani.
Right.
Which is the only one I really hate.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So maybe you'll disagree and maybe you'll hate some other stories with the Seventh Doctor, but that's the only one I couldn't stand. And actually, during that episode, I think we talked about the notion of wanting to hear from someone who liked it.
Yeah.
Luke from the Minute Doctor Who podcast, or Tamudwup,
Yeah.
he sent us a message on Twitter saying that he liked it and would defend it.
Really?
I actually didn't get back to him. I should get back to him about that.
Oh, I would just love to hear that.
I'm kind of interested to hear a defense of that story.
Right, because and it's not that, like I think the notion is preposterous. It's just that I can't conceive of it, and like I would just love to hear it.
Yeah, he tweeted at us a few days ago saying, "I'm a bit late on this, I know, but I like Time in the Rani and would happily defend it."
Huh. It is interesting.
Why?
I don't know. This is what fascinates me. But yeah, well, there you go. Well, yeah, and I was actually kind of wondering about that, like how quickly the Seventh Doctor improves, or becomes tolerable. Doesn't have to like be awesome, but because I mean, I don't know. Time in the Rani was just not a good starting point for the Seventh Doctor.
I would agree.
But yeah,
I would agree. Anyhow,
yeah,
the Ark.
Yes, the Ark.
The concept of the destruction of the Earth and everyone's got to flee from it.
Yeah.
It's not the only time that was done in Doctor Who.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, we also see the destruction of the Earth in the end of the world.
Right.
Which is in a completely different time scale, I think.
Is it a more accurate time scale based on whatever department of science is in charge of estimating these things?
Whatever department. I don't know. I honestly don't know when Earth is actually going to be consumed by solar flares. And I think in the end of the world, the Ninth Doctor story, we're told that the Earth would actually have been made inhospitable to all life much earlier, or perhaps even destroyed. I don't quite remember what it says, except they kept saving it over and over again. But now they're finally letting it go.
I'm surprised. Actually thinking about that. I'm surprised it wasn't the Doctor just continually saving the Earth. Like, why did other people have to save it? I mean, I thought that was the Doctor's job.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and that's a nice blanket way of sort of preventing the end of the world from becoming less, I don't know, relevant when like supernovas or whatever are discovered further and or studied further. And it's like determined that like, oh no, the sun wouldn't behave this way, get something, so on, explaining what would actually happen and whatnot. So that's a nice thing, is like you just kind of assume that there was some sort of governmental body that prevented these things from happening or whatever. I don't know.
And shifted the continents back.
Yeah, those important things.
Yeah, this story, the Doctor estimates that it's set in the year 10 million.
Okay.
Whereas the end of the world is in the year 5 billion.
Okay, yeah.
So it's kind of a different time scale.
I should think. Unless the Ark was just getting a real big head start.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, listen, guys, Earth's days are numbered. Let's get out of here while we can. And they just kind of told everyone after they left that the Earth blew up, because they didn't want like to have to deal with like them getting homesick or whatever. So they just decided they'd tell everyone that the Earth blew up.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
There are also stories like the Beast Below.
Oh yeah,
which is kind of similar in the Earth's not completely destroyed. They're just kind of leaving Earth and they intend to go back eventually.
Right, like Wall-E.
Yes. There's also the Ark in Space, which is another Doctor Who story that has the words "the" and "Ark" in the title. It has a similar concept to that, but we haven't seen it yet for this podcast, so
it's as if we don't know what it is.
It's as if we don't. We don't even know what an Ark is.
That's right. It's been wiped from our minds. So there you have it.
There, I guess you have it.
Eventually, everyone leaves Earth in their own time,
in their own way.
Yeah.
Oh, also, there's the Silurians in one of your favorite stories, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
Exactly.
But that's a different extinction event.
Right. Yeah. That's that one turned out differently. But everyone's got to leave under their own threat of extinction, and whether that be a meteorite or the sun exploding or just because they're paranoid, that's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
So what was up with the refusions being invisible?
They just were.
Right, but shouldn't that have been a bigger deal than it was?
Nah.
Okay.
They were turned invisible by solar flares, right?
Oh, that's right. But
obviously.
Yeah, right. How stupid could I be? Of course, solar flares are going to do that to you. That's why they fled Earth was solar flares. I mean, look what happened to their fusions. They didn't flee, and now they're invisible.
Yeah, if they had just stayed on Earth, this is what would have happened.
Right. Yeah. That's fate worse than death right there.
Yeah. So anyhow, the refusions turned invisible by solar flares, and they hate fighting.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, do they hate fighting. They're invisible, for crying out loud. They could fight anybody they wanted to, and it'd just be, yeah.
But they don't want to.
I guess
because
not.
they hate it.
I guess
they like to build homes for people.
Visible homes.
They like to build visible homes for their visible guests that they are expecting.
Seriously,
they went to a lot of trouble.
They did. I don't know. Maybe that's just part of their culture. Yeah, it seems kind of strange. I don't know. It just seems kind of strange to have and I mean, to their credit, you can't really, critique the costume. I mean, we were critiquing the monoid. Right. So it's the makeup department or whatever
It's like in Shada, which has one of the best spaceship designs I've ever seen. Or ever not seen.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, because why not? I mean, it does save it. It just leaves it to the imagination, which is just the best. The imagination is the best special effects there is.
Yeah, I'm worried that at the end, I mean, the monoids and the humans, I guess, make peace.
Yeah,
but I'm worried about those refusions. I mean, who are bossing them around and have these strange powers that no one really quite understands.
Yeah.
So are the monoids and humans just going to become slaves to invisible masters?
The only hope is if Dodo can infect the refusions with a cold.
Yeah, it's the only hope.
It'll be
spreading infections.
Yep. That'll be their invisible menace. They'll be too caught up with the microscopic germs to worry about their macroscopic conquest of, I don't know. But does it mean that any organism that stayed there on that planet long enough would turn invisible? Because I mean, that could get kind of impractical.
Or maybe it would be better. Maybe it would sort of it would sort of unite them.
That's right. It would eliminate racism and stuff, because you wouldn't be able to see what the other person looked like. You'd have to make up races based on voice, pitch or whatever.
Yeah.
Tone, something.
And I mean, the monoids actually do sound different from humans, so it would probably end up along the same lines anyway. Oh well, we tried.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Turns out you can't fix racism that way. through erasing everybody's physical beings. Turns out it doesn't work.
I guess not. One of the last things in this episode was, the humans talking about how they were going to pass down the legend of the Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting, because that's become a major theme in the new series, where the entire definition of the word Doctor comes from the idea of the Doctor and that kind of thing and all that stuff.
So basically, all the problems that happen in Series 6, it all starts here.
Yep, this is the start of it. I think it's got to be, Word got back to the Silence.
They're like, oh well, we can't be having that.
Wait, no, maybe the Silence are somehow related to the Refusions.
Ooh, because instead of being invisible to your eyes, they're invisible to your memory.
Exactly.
Because of solar flares.
Right, this is just yeah, this is some kind of later stage of the solar flare invisibility power. Yeah, that's got to be it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's got to be it.
It's simply gotta.
Exactly.
Lewis, would you like me to pick the next story at random for us to watch after the arc?
I would.
All right, then I think I can do that.
Oh, good.
All right, at random, the story we shall watch next will be The Suntaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky.
Ooh.
An adventure from the 4th series of Doctor Who in 2008.
Yeah. This is exciting because I believe it's the first time we will be explicitly talking about that series, I think. Because we've...
That's... did we do Midnight?
Oh, we did do Midnight. That's right. But it will be the first time we get to talk about Donna.
It's true.
Because we didn't do any of that, I think, when we discussed Midnight. Because Donna wasn't really in it.
That's probably true.
But yeah. Cool.